Vintage Motocross Q&A. I caught myself off guard here a little bit. Welcome to Vintage Motocross Q&A. And this is our Tank Banger edition that we've been doing every morning at 9 a.m. weekdays. And I've shown you a couple of different techniques and tips all week long. And today's Friday, and we're on tip number 5. And let's get a closer look at what I'm going to show you, what you should address and how you should do it in order to get a good job on your tank. You know, the bottom of the tank is just as important as the sides, obviously. And a lot of times I've seen gas tanks that are not addressed in detail along the bottom. That includes the weld, the area right here where it folds in, the bend along the edge. They usually get that pretty good. But for the most part, the flat part here and along the weld are some areas that are sometimes neglected and should not be neglected in order to get a good job. I've often said it, an Elsinore tank is the eyes of the motorcycle. It's the eyes of the motorcycle. It's the first thing people look at when you walk up to a Honda Elsinore 73, 74. First thing you look at is the gas tank, and the next thing you do is go down and you look at the pipe. We all know that. We've all been there. So those are the areas that we try to really concentrate on the most. My area, the gas tank. Today's show is brought to you by the International Motocross Museum. Be sure to visit them online at internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. Also, you can comment where you're watching the show from. If you've watched it a few times this week, if you have any questions or you would like to see me address anything on the show any morning in the future, let me know, and I'll do my best. I'll do my best to bring you an answer to the question that you may have. Now, right here, you have your weld, and it's bent into the flat section of this tank. You can take some sandpaper, and you can fold it over, maybe even put it into, roll it a little bit. You can do that and get it in this section right here, and you're going to go back and forth. But what I prefer and what I would recommend you do is, if you have a good paint stripper that'll take the clear off, use the paint stripper on the weld, get it clear. Somebody's been over this a few times already before I got it. So the weld is, it's a little worn down. But what I would recommend is you get some paint stripper on here and get the clear off. Take it off with steel wool. You can then take a clean piece of steel wool and follow up on the weld, or you can get some Scotch-Brite just like this and clean off that weld. Why am I telling you to do that with a Scotch-Brite pad or steel wool? You don't want to do it with sandpaper, because it's going to take away the integrity of the weld, like it has done in some sections on this tank already. Let me see if I have another tank here where I can show you what a good weld should look like. Yeah, it's a 75 tank. Let me see if I can show you on that one. See that? That's a nice factory weld. You don't want to lose that. You want to keep that look on your tank, to keep it looking as authentic as possible. Now, another thing you can do, I've done it before, but you could use a little wire wheel just like this. This one happens to be steel. I would recommend a brass one if you're going to do this, but it can be done. Do it lightly. You don't want to start to gouge up the aluminum. got that section cleaned up a little bit better. Again, the best thing to do is paint stripper. If you have one that's aggressive enough to remove the clear, a lot of them today are not that good anymore, and you'd want to use that to remove it. Vapor blasting. Let me see if I have something here. Yeah, I do. Let me go back to this camera for just a second. All right, this tank was really a mess. So I wanted to have it all cleaned. I mean, there were layers of paint. There was all kinds of stuff on here. And I wanted to get it clean before I started to work on it. Now you can see it has a super clean silver finish on there. Best part is how nice the bottom comes. Then you've got a nice clean slate to work with. I had this vapor blasted by Mark Farriester at Sunrise Vapor Blasting. Any vapor blasting service in your area will probably do just as good a job. I always support Sunrise Vapor Blasting because they do such a great job for us on stuff like this. And he's somewhat local. He is in Modesto, California. I also like the way, I don't know if you can see inside there. See how nice and clean it gets around the welds? You don't get that without vapor blasting, okay? So that's how you get it nice and clean. But if you don't have a vapor blaster and you're in a hurry and you don't have paint stripper, you could use the wire wheel. Use it lightly. Now, let's get back to what we were doing here. After I've got that weld clean, go over it with a little Scotch-Brite pad. I'm really not getting down into areas of this weld where you could see dark gray. I'm not getting down in there so well. I can if I do it this way. But you want to make sure the weld is as clean as possible. When you're restoring the tank. Really not too bad. I just shipped 5 tanks to Brian Fenneman. All of them, of course, were in beautiful condition before I sent them. They all went in for paint. Otherwise, I would have shown you what a really, really clean weld looks like in this area. Anyway, I think the important thing is that I addressed it and I told you about it. And we won't take much more time having me stand over this tank for the next half hour or so, getting this weld as clean as I will get it in the future. I just want to give you an idea of what you should do when you're restoring a tank. I mentioned earlier about taking some sandpaper like this, some 180. You can roll it like that, get it right down into where that fold of that tank is. Being careful to stay away from the weld and just clean it up where that tank folds into the weld. All right, I did that with rule 180. I'm going to go down to 240. Finally hit it with a little 320, and that's about as far as I'm going to go down there today. Okay. Let's finish this section right here. Working the same way with the 180, the 240, and the 320. Fold the paper over like this. Keep it with the flat in my hand, or actually I'm using this section right here. And I like to do this before I put my final finishes on the side, because if you do the side first, then you get over here, you're going to wind up going into the side of the tank again and having to chase that, clean that up all over again. So, also, as I mentioned a little bit earlier with the vapor blasting, if you do that, you make it nice and clean and make this part of the job a little bit easier to do too. Susie, we're live on Tank Bangers. You want me to put the camera on you in your pink pajamas? No. Okay.
No, I gotta worry about it.
Okay, so we hit that with the 180. Let's give it a little more love with the 240. Susie's busy with the sprinklers this morning on this Northern California morning. It's going to be hot out here today and this weekend. $180, $240. Little 320. And yes, that is how I do it when I come around the front of the tank too. I do it the same way, 180, 240, 320. What are some areas here? Let me show you this too while we have the time. No different over here in this section where the front of the tank rolls into the flange. You want to do the same thing. Get your 180 in there. I'm going to show you in a minute another area too at the back of the tank that you're going to want to pay close attention to. Right after I just kind of whip this up for you, show you how to make it look nice and clean. Okay. And as I walk around this tank, I see more and more things that I can point out to you that are going to help you along the way in your restoration. Let's take a look. Let's take a look right about here. If you could see it on camera, that's a pretty good shot, actually. Here, just let me get a. See, I got a couple of comments here. Brian Webley, you never miss a show, brother. Lunchroom at work in West Virginia. Tim Whitehouse, what's the best method for removing rattle can paint? Rattle can paint obviously isn't the best paint in the world. There should be no reason why. I mean, you could sand it right off without using too aggressive of a sandpaper to start scratching into the metal. Maybe 180, 240 would take it off. Your paint strippers of today, there's something missing from them called methylene chloride. That's the really good stuff that used to make the paint actually bubble up and come off. They don't have that chemical anymore. It's good on things like spray paint. It's good on wood where you're trying to lift varnish and, you know, less caustic and less thick materials like that. But you got to, it's almost like, I hate to say it, but you're wasting your money on paint strippers these days. Maybe in an auto body supply store, it might be better, but I doubt it. Because the most active ingredient, the methylene chloride, isn't in there anymore. I came over here to tell you about something else, though, too. Not the methylene chloride and the paint stripper. Oh, to answer Tim's question, sand it. Vapor blast it right off. You might get lucky being it's not a quality paint by using the paint strippers that they sell. Okay? The other 12 people that are in here, I can't tell who you are because you are either not friends with me on Facebook or you have not joined Vintage Motocross Q&A. So you're allowed, of course, to watch the video because it's public, but I can't see your name and I can't see your comments. And I would love to see that. All right? All right, let's get back to the front of this tank. I want to bring up another. Sometimes you will see on the top, on the side, you will have oxidation in the aluminum. This happens from years of, well, you know what oxidation is. The metal, the aluminum starts to eat away a little bit on itself. It gets little holes in it. It gets stained way down right into the aluminum. Now, I'm going to try something here because it looks like I have that problem. And I want to see if I can bring it out and show you. I know you know what I'm talking about, but I just want to show it to you. Here. Let me see if I can get it down there close enough to where you can really see it. If you look closely, where's my tricky little pointer thing? Here it is. You see here? Here, everywhere I'm pointing to, you can see a little darker gray, and that's the aluminum that is oxidized over the years. Sometimes, no matter how much you sand, you can't get that out. Now, I'm going to spend a little time right here. And maybe I will get it out, maybe I won't. I'm going to tell you what happens when you can't. And as I sand down from 180, 240, 320, it's going to get shinier, and you're going to see it even more. $180. 40. Rob McGregor, good to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us. All right, and I'm even going to take it down to our, well, kind of the finest thing I have out here as far as sandpaper goes. I do go to 600 at times, 800 on my tanks that are highly polished, TT tanks, Husky tanks in the area. But on the Elsinore tanks, I never use anything finer than 400. Okay. Now I'm going to try my best to see if I can get a good shot for you of what we have here exactly. I don't know if you can see it or not. Right here is probably the biggest one. See that mark right there in front of the tip of that drill bit? No matter how much I sand right there, well, this is a scratch that I can get out. But there are a couple of other small gray specks, and these are rather inconspicuous on this tank. I've had others where it's oxidized and it would be impossible to get out. So you're going to sand as much as you can, but after you do, and you get it all smooth and you're looking at it and you're going to think to yourself, I got to sand it more, I got to sand it more. You're going to see that it's not going to come out. What can you do about it? Nothing. There's nothing you're going to do about that. Now, on your smoother finishes, like you have here on this Elsinore, where we go down to 400 and then we polish by hand, you're going to see it. Tank's still going to look nice, but you're still going to have those little specks in there. You know, by the time you get done with your green and your black stripes, clear coat, and you put your graphics on, and it's on the bike and it's all together, it's not going to be that big of a distraction. But when you yourself put 18, 20, 25 hours into a gas tank, sanding by hand and taking dents out, you're going to be looking at that thing like this. Like this, you're going to look at it. That's how close. You're going to be looking at it like this, and you're going to say, oh, there's a spot right here. I see this. That's what happens. That's what you turn into. If you are working on, say, a CZ tank or maybe something with a little bit more of a brushed finish, if you go a little coarser, let's say you're only going to put a finish on it of 180 or 240, and I'll go back and I'll do that for you right now. Let's say you're going to, you don't want it that fine and you're not going to polish it. You just want a brush finish on it. Maybe you're not even going to clear it. So you'll hit it with some 180. And it hides some of it. It's a little less noticeable because you've got the grain in it from the sandpaper. So you'll notice it or you won't notice it quite as much. Swamp Picker, welcome to the chat. Ryan Webley, Rob McGregor, of course, Tim Whitehouse. Tim Whitehouse is here every morning, 9 o'clock. If there was a way for him to give me an apple through the thing, remember the apple for the teacher thing? It's really old, right? Anyway, there's that. Let's move to the back of this tank. I want to show you another area that you're going to want to pay close attention to if you want a really good job. Okay? So, move around to the back, right about here. And we're going to lift our camera up. See if I got a good shot. Not so bad. Maybe I'll get a little closer. Here's an area of the tank where if you get lazy or you're inexperienced, it's going to show in the end. That's right around this weld right here. Right around there. And just like I told you about the weld on the side, this is sort of similar to that. It's a little less conspicuous because it's toward the bottom. You got the seat sitting over here, but it's noticeable nonetheless. The important thing is you want to make sure you get this area sanded and sanded well before you begin your final brush finish or your polishing or whatever it might be. This is not the best angle for me to sand because I want you to see what I'm doing, and it's a little difficult with the camera there. I guess I could come to this side. And you want to get down there in that groove as close to the weld as possible. Don't forget, fellas, it's your questions that are going to help make this show better each morning. You send me questions, I'll do my best to get you answers. It'll make better content for the show, and it'll help the viewers. Okay, so I'm down to 180, 240. I mean, I don't really have to go to 320 there. But here's what I'll do. Hit it with a little 320. Let me do this. I do that because when I'm cutting in the side to put on, well, I shouldn't say a brush finish anymore. I do brush finishes, I do polish finishes too. But when I'm working on the side, I can't see back there. So I want to address that ahead of time. So when I'm doing my sanding over here, I could just go over that edge and I know I'm hitting a section of the tank that's already been finished, as opposed to me doing it over here, not doing it back here, coming around the back and giving myself new scratch marks over here to where I got to finish it again later. Let's also be careful, or I don't know if I should say careful, but this area right here, This is your mounting hole for the front of your tank. I know you're all more than familiar with it. And here goes a rubber grommet. Inside that rubber grommet goes a chromed bushing with a flat piece on it. They are often called top hats because they do kind of look like a top hat or a stovepipe hat. In this situation, this does get covered by that. But just because it gets covered doesn't mean I don't want to do a good job now. So when the customer gets the tank back, it doesn't look all crappy in that area. So you might have it to where there's marks that are much wider than that. You might have it to where there's gouges and nicks in this section of the tank because someone has taken a wrench to tighten it or take it off. And they hit the tank. I'm going to bring up another topic here in just a second. Once I get this little area straightened out. And it has to do with this section too. Okay, looks a little nicer. I know it'll certainly look nicer once your rubber grommet is in there and your chrome hi-hat piece is in there as well. Now, what I was saying is, guys will torque down on that 6mm bolt that's in there to the point of where they, crush the grommet. The grommet is gone. It's just about disintegrated. You keep tightening it until I can't tighten it anymore. Then the metal piece is right here on this tank. You know what? Bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna get that so I can explain it a little better. 7,700 fundamental. Okay. I'm gonna explain it a little better to you. In other words, this is an old, let me show it here. That's an old grommet. Sits inside there. All right? I'm not going to bother forcing that in right now. But it sits down even like that. This piece sits in there too. The bolt goes through there and it goes into the frame. What happens is, guys let that grommet wear out. And I'm not saying it's an intentional thing or they don't pay attention or whatever the case may be. This one might even be a little bit of a better. I don't know if this one's a little bit bigger. It is. Then it sits there like that. And let's say the tank is wobbling on the bike over the years. And you've got that thing as tight as you can get it now. Well, it starts moving around in here. Even if it's not tight and you can't get it down anymore and it's just sitting up barely because you can't tighten it anymore. The tank's slopping around all over the bike. It starts to wear through here. I have seen it where tanks have leaked from around this area. That's how bad the wear is and the neglect, and it can start to leak from there. And where these two pieces of aluminum are sandwiched together, it's here. I'll show you from here again. Where those two pieces of aluminum are sandwiched together, right there, the gas still gets down past here, and that's where it starts to leak. I've seen it. The problem is, your welder is going to hate you and curse you because there's all gas and premix and oil down in there, and he's going to have one heck of a time getting weld to stick. So you got to pay attention to that area. You got to have your tank flushed out if your welder does have to weld it. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very difficult time. And who knows? He might say, I'm not doing this anymore. I mean, it's a real good possibility. Welders are kind of finicky. They want to weld pieces of metal together. They don't want to clean things more than wire brushing, maybe sanding once in a while. They're not in the detail business, so to speak. They're welders. They're professionals. They're artists. They do a great job. But they're a little finicky about going outside of their craft. Let's just say that. What else did I want to show you today? I showed you the back of the tank. I showed you where to pay attention to the front, where that front mount is. What else do we have here? Swamp Picker's got a question. I won twice on your show. I still have my dad's 72 250 Cross Husky. Still has stock tires on it. It's good to know. I don't know who you are, Swamp Picker, but you won on my show twice. Well, congratulations. That's great. I'm glad you watched Vintage Motocross Q&A. The other question is, what do you think of using Cream? They have an AB prep kit. Cream. Very bad. Flush the tank out. Let's look at it this way. You're probably talking about a steel tank. I have seen people put Cream in aluminum tanks. No, they don't rust, but the genius is that they are. Use the Cream to stop it from leaking. Not a bad idea. Hang on, guys. Here it is. Not a bad idea to stop it from leaking, but eventually it's going to fail. And the gas is going to get underneath the Cream, and it's going to lift, but not every place. And then you're going to have Cream in pieces, in chunks, in flakes, in the gas tank, clogging up your petcock, getting into your fuel system. All right? I am not a big fan of Cream any longer. It happens because of mostly the ethanol gas. Avoid Cream at all costs. If you have a hole in the tank, get it welded. If you have rust in the tank, flush it out. I always recommend Evapo Rust. Some people use cider vinegar, costs nickels and dimes, but get the rust out. Get your pinholes welded, whatever it is. Go for the cost of a paint job, make it nice again, but don't put Cream in it. And there was something else I wanted to say about the Cream. Oh, getting it out is not so easy too. I've had luck with acetone. I've had other guys say they've tried everything from acetone to different chemicals, and that nothing will take it out. You can take it to a radiator shop. Hear me out, though. They're going to boil the tank like they boil a radiator. Radiators get rust in them. They get corrosion. They get clogged up. People want them repaired. They dunk them in a tank. Takes out everything and anything except the metal that is in that radiator. It's going to do the same thing if they'll accommodate you and they don't mind putting your gas tank in their vat. It's going to do the same thing for your gas tank. It is also going to remove every stitch of paint that is on your tank. But it'll be clean. Stay away from Cream. That's my suggestion on that. I have a shop sold a lot of it before they had e-gas. Yeah, well, yeah, the ethanol stuff is really what eats it up. Guys did use it for years. I mean, I work on tanks all the time, that it's in there from the 70s. On steel tanks, when I see them. Not aluminum tanks. I do see it on aluminum tanks from time to time to stop a leak. What else can I tell you or show you here today? Find a local race car shop for welding needs. Yeah, that's a good idea too. All right. Now I drilled a hole in here. We were working on this tank the other day, and it's pretty straight on one side. It's actually straight on the other. What else did we work on here this week? We worked on this guy. I think that was a Monday or Tuesday deal. We had a huge dent down the side, and I got it back pretty close again. But we're ahead of the game on that. This side is just about done except for over here and me putting a final sanding on it. It's a tank we worked on the other day too. I've got one shallow. See it there? Right about there. But I've got the dents out of the rest of it. And this side. Ooh, does that look nice? Look at that. Ooh. That looks nice. We got the shell, and we've got this other guy that we were working on today. I think I'm going to cut it to 45 minutes today, guys. I showed you how to sand the back of the tank, the front. I told you to pay attention to the front mounting area right here. I told you about oxidation on the sides. The finer you go on the sanding or to polishing, the more you're going to see it. If you want to leave a little bit more of a brushed finish, you can only maybe go as fine as 180 or 240. You'll see it a whole lot less. And I feel a hole underneath here. So I've still got some work to do back here. But that's it for today for our Tank Banger segment on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't forget to watch our 6 o'clock episode. Every Wednesday night, we've been live for 5 years. Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank our sponsors that are all here behind me. Motion Pro, Full Circle, International Motocross Museum, of course, Bultaco East, Vidco, Preston Petty. We give away a poster like that just about every Wednesday. Racer X cover featuring Tony DeStefano and Jimmy Weinert. Some of our other show supporters. Oh, this guy's a sponsor, not just a show supporter. Sirius Studios. Check them out online. You got some really nice off-track gear. Some low-key stuff. You know, not your skull and crossbones stuff and all that. Some really low-key off-track gear, which still says you're a part of the moto community. George Ackerman in the Moto Barn. Always great events happening down there. Amsoil, Russell Waters, FastGuyStuff.com, Derp Sunrise Vapor Blasting. And, of course, all of our show supporters here on top, Tom Miller, Pete Noneman, Carl Ward, Lou Blanchard, etc. $49.95. They got themselves a nice T-shirt and 4 products, compliments of Russell Waters and Amsoil. That wraps it up. I want to wish everyone a good weekend. It's also Father's Day. So if you are blessed enough to have your father still around, be sure to give him a call. Tell him something nice. And if you're a dad, I hope your kids call you. Father's Day, the most uncomplicated holiday of the year. It doesn't matter what we get. We don't really care. We're just happy to be with our kids. And that's it. Have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day. We'll see you on Monday morning at 9.